guys, it's Liz. Welcome back to my channel. I am so excited for today's video just because we are diving back a little bit into the past, and I'm going to be talking about what I'm calling some of my biggest regrets in college. So if you are new here, I am a faith and lifestyle blogger, so you're definitely going to find some themes where my faith does show up just because it's a big part of my life, and it was definitely a huge part of my college experience. And also, just as a disclaimer, this is not a do's and don'ts video on college tips and advice. If that's something that you are looking for, a few years ago I did do a college series where I kind of just gave a lot of tips, whether it's grades, making friends, thinking about the future, all of that, and I will link it in the info above. I'll also have it in the description if you want to check it out. And of course, if you want to see college advice, I would love to do that in the future. But really what I want to focus on today is my regrets. In other words, things I wish I knew at the time that I know now. And when I do think about college, really I am genuinely super thankful for my experience. I think that I saw how God grew me so much, and ultimately there is nothing I would change just because I saw how one thing led to another. And a lot of the things that I learn now are because of the experiences that I did have. And so I am ultimately really happy and grateful for my experience, but if I could have a different mindset on certain things, I would have loved to have that mindset. And so when thinking about these regrets, I really wanted to focus on perspectives and mindsets that I wish that I had at the time. So with all that said, here are some of the biggest regrets that I have now looking back at my college experience. Looking back, I definitely will say that there were a lot of times where I felt like I had imposter syndrome. And I know that this happens to so many people, but I think it especially happens when you're entering college for the first time. You know, I think that coming from a really small school, a really small town to a big city with thousands of students, I think it's really easy to compare yourself and doubt your own ability. And I just remember so many times sitting in class feeling so afraid to participate, or just like questioning yourself if you're smart enough, and you know, just things like that. And I think that I just doubted myself in some ways that I wish I just never did, honestly, because I think sometimes when you doubt yourself and your ability to do something, then sometimes it can hold you back on different opportunities. And even though I do believe that there were a lot of things I did push through, I challenged myself to do it, I definitely will say that there were times where I put pressure on myself or I questioned myself and I didn't need to. So I think that's definitely one thing I regret, is falling into that easy trap of having imposter syndrome, just doubting yourself, being afraid of saying the wrong thing, all of those things. I just wish that I had believed in myself more at the time. The second thing I regret is just being afraid of other people's opinions, what other people are thinking. I think that especially when you're an underclassman, I remember feeling like everyone else is so much more advanced, all these upperclassmen. It just seems really intimidating, especially say like if you're a freshman or something and you're in a class with people who are older than you. I think automatically you assume that they are more advanced than you, or just all of these things. But really, again, I think those things are just lies. I feel like I wasn't as comfortable in my own skin, and I think that that's something that comes with time, especially as you grow up, as you get older, you just naturally get to a place where you're just more comfortable and you know yourself better. But at the time, I definitely feel like there were times where I was worried about what other people were thinking, when that is unnecessary, and sometimes you just end up overthinking things. And so I think that's definitely my second regret that I have. So the third thing that I would say is my next regret is just not fully being present, like mentally just like being present where I am. So what I mean by that is that I feel like college is such a transitional period in your life. For me, I was away from home, completely different state, completely different city. And I think there were times where I wondered, okay, am I in the right place? Did I choose the right school? I think it happens to a lot of people. So for me, I think there were times where I'd be wondering those things. And I think as time went on for me, I realized like I'm exactly where God wants me to be. This is the perfect choice for me. So I wish I hadn't worried so much, but I totally understand why. And I think one reason was, for one thing, it was very stressful at times. I think there was a lot of pressure to succeed and to do a lot of different things. So I definitely think there were times where it felt like my brain was split in like a million different directions. And hey, again, it's normal as college students. Sometimes you're multitasking. But again, I think it's so good, and I wish I had just really slowed down a bit more whenever I could to just really appreciate the moment and appreciate the present. So the next thing that I would say is a regret is just not getting off campus more, and then also not exploring different areas of campus more. So for me, I went to a pretty decent sized school, and we had a lot of places we could go to off campus, and I did get to explore a lot of really cool places. But I think it's really easy to get stuck on campus in your own routine and just really get to treasure being in a new place. And with that too, I think I really loved and enjoyed campus, but again, I think sometimes you get stuck in a routine where it's like, okay, this is where I like to study, this is where I like to eat, this is where I hang out. And there's so many places that I wish I had seen more of, or there's maybe some places I never even got to see. So I definitely wish that I had gotten to look around more and just really like enjoy all the different areas. I think it just would have been a really interesting experience to maybe just explore and get to know some other places. So the next thing is just feeling like I needed to do everything. College is an amazing time because you can get involved in so many things, and I loved the things that I did get involved in, but I will say it did sometimes feel like pressure if you were not in as many activities as someone else. But the thing is that you really don't need to do everything. I think it's cool to discover your passions and stick to those passions and pursue those things. You don't have to do everything. And I think that there were sometimes where it felt like I need to do more when I didn't really need to. So the next thing, which kind of goes off of the last one, is feeling like I didn't get to put as much time into the things I really wish I had put time into. So here's the thing, is that looking back, again, like, you don't have to do everything. You don't have to be involved in everything. But the things that you're really passionate about, and in my case, the things I felt like God was leading me to, I think sometimes it kind of felt like you had to rush through them or whatnot, just because sometimes it seemed like there was not enough time. And so I wish that I had been able to put more time into some things. Like, for example, I was very passionate about my campus ministry. I was very involved in it among other clubs, and that was something that was super important to me. But I think there were times where it felt like I couldn't do certain things because of my schedule, or just felt like I didn't have enough time. And honestly, there were definitely times where was not time, and you have to make sacrifices. College is a great season where you can learn time management, and you can really learn what you're passionate about and put time into those things. So I'm thankful for the time I did put into the things I was passionate about. But I definitely think that there were things where I wish that I had more time, so to speak. So going off of that, the next thing that I wish I had done differently was get more sleep. I feel like one of my regrets is definitely the times where I did not get enough sleep, and I think it took me really until my senior year to really be more strict about having a bedtime. Here's the thing with college, like, it's really easy to stay up late, hang out with your friends, and just be busy with your homework or whatever you're working on, but you can totally avoid pulling an all-nighter. Thankfully, that only happened to me like twice, I think, but that was miserable. And anytime I went to bed really late, like 4 o'clock or 2 o'clock even, I would be like wrecked. For the whole week, I would literally be recovering. Like, I'd have a headache and everything. So that really threw me off. Prioritize your sleep. You really need to take care of yourself. So I think that time management is definitely a big part of college. And for the most part, I did feel pretty confident and good with how I was able to manage my time when it came to classes. But thinking back, you have a whole syllabus. There's so many things you can really prepare in advance, and so I definitely wish that was something I did more often, so that I would not get into any situations in the future where you have to kind of stress or cram to like study for a test or to get something done. So that's definitely something I would say I regret not doing more of. So the next thing that I would say regret is not sewing into some people's lives more. I think for me, being a Christian in college, like, it was just such a wonderful opportunity to just be a light and be loving to people. And I think sometimes it's really easy to just stick with who you know and what you know. And there's nothing wrong with that, because sometimes you have people in your life for you to sow into and you to encourage and you to care for, and that's totally fine. But there's also sometimes really random encounters that you do have with so many different people, and opportunities that I had, and I didn't always take those opportunities to, maybe take that extra mile to be friendly or to strike up a conversation or whatever it is. And I think that it's interesting because on my campus, sometimes you would meet someone once, or at least this happened to me. I remember sometimes meeting somebody once, like randomly, and like never seeing them again, like for the rest of like the 4 years of college. That was it. So you just never know. Sometimes you randomly meet a person, you never know. Maybe the one thing you told them that day, they would stick with them. But ultimately, even though that's something I wish I took more opportunities to do, like whether that could have been sharing my faith, I know that God's ultimately in control, and that like sometimes God uses other people in someone's life to reach them, to encourage them, whatever it is. And so I think it's always good to keep that in mind. The next thing that I definitely regret, I think this is one of my biggest regrets, because it seemed like there was so much happening all at once. I definitely feel like my quiet time with God suffered like a lot in the beginning of college, because I feel like my own personal devotion, like I'm reading the Bible by myself, I'm praying by myself, spending time with God, definitely was hard to nail down at first. And it's interesting because I was part of like a couple different Bible studies, I was going to church, I was doing all of these things, but my own quiet time was lacking. And really, you need that personal time with the Lord. And I think that I really felt that over time, because I felt so exhausted, I felt so drained, I felt like I was on survivor mode, trying to just get through and trying to push through instead of really just trusting God. And because I think sometimes when you don't plug into Him regularly, you tend to get drained. So you really need to maintain that connection, and that's something I definitely realized. So it was helpful for me to realize like, oh man, I need the Lord. Day by day, I really need Him to sustain me. I need His wisdom. I need His guidance. And so I definitely regret not honing in more than I could have initially when I was in college. But eventually I did get to a place where I was like, okay, me and the Lord, we need our morning time every single day. And that was a really great habit to build, and something that I was able to maintain eventually. But I definitely would advise for anyone starting off college, if you're a believer, press into the Lord. Like He is your guidance, He is your refuge. Like you're definitely going to gain a lot if you continuously plug into Him. The last thing that I regret is not giving myself more grace. Ultimately, when I go through these different mindsets I wish I did have, I ultimately don't have an ultimate regret, because I understand that there are things you learn over time. There are lessons that you learn over time, and you don't need to be hard on yourself. And so I think that I wish when I was a college student, I gave myself more grace. Like even when it came to say classes, and say if you didn't do as well as you thought you would on a test or something, it's easy to beat yourself up or to just feel really down about it, but like it's okay to give yourself grace. And also something I mentioned before is alone time is so important. And I wish that I just remembered that in some cases, especially when you're going, like recharge, take a break, take it easy. I think that is so important, honestly. There can be a lot of stressful moments, and they totally come, but I definitely think giving yourself grace will allow you to overcome, learn, grow, and continue. This is just a basic overview of 10 things I wish I knew in college, 10 mindsets I wish I had, and perspectives I wish I had. But if you want something more specific about my college experience, I definitely have a lot of stories, I have a lot of lessons. I would love to share it. Feel free to drop a question below or message me on my social media or my blog. I'd love to do more updated college advice in the future, maybe even a Q&A or something, so definitely feel free to reach out. I do hope that you're able to just take these perspectives and apply it to your own life, wherever you are, whether you're in college or not. really, I think that this is something that you can really take for the rest of your life, because I definitely will say, and something again why I really love my college experience is that I grew so much, and I feel like I grew as a person, I grew in my faith, and that's why it is so precious to me. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.